So Adrian will pop in. Hey everybody, we're back. What's that on your head, Paul? Is that your god? Here we go. What have we lost? So we've lost Lana.
It's a big ask to raise the vibration sometimes, but Nicholas was great.
Yeah, wasn't he? He was seriously good. Yeah. Oh well, I'll see.
Apparently, we belong to the same faith.
The same faith. So just seeing what's working here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8. Yeah, I think Dr. Dan was back as a.
How does he identify now?
Yeah, he came back as an Indian guy.
Nothing wrong with that.
What's that?
So long as nothing wrong with that, so long as he's respectful.
Here's trouble. Trouble with a capital A.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, man. Okay,
Good stuff.
We're over here trying to stop Paul going to jail. I'm in Epic live, and then we hear that you've had the whole council sacked, and it must be big because we're having every single Facebook page shut down. So that shows you how popular you are.
Look, we're not sacked yet.
You know?
Are you serious?
Digital curtain is falling in real time. You know.
That's funny. Sorry about that. I've got that effect apparently. My own government Facebook page was shut down within about 20 minutes of announcing a run for state government back in March. So it was quite funny how quick they get onto you.
Yeah. Well, Paul, I have to say today the funniest thing was I was in court. It was really tense, and then this fucker sends me a thing that goes, "The truth will set you free," from the council. And I'm sitting there trying not to giggle in court. So what happened, Adrian? I know you've been on Hoodies. You probably told the story all day, but is this just because of the COVID thing you've been doing, or they just want that council gone?
Look, that's certainly part of it, mate. I've certainly, not just me, but we've got 4 strong councillors on the Port Hedland Council. The ex-mayor, who's also on the council, comes with his own controversy. He was quite strong. He was the mayor back in 2017, 18, and coming into 19, he was able to change the rating strategy of the town, and we started rating industry, the big miners, BHP, Rio Tinto, FMG, and Roy Hill, Gina Reinhardt's mine. The miners didn't like it. They took the town to court, and the town won. And so the town went from a tier 3 small 15,000 town to a sort of $100 million budget overnight, and it sort of put the town in a very strong financial position. But the state government, working in hand with the big miners back in the day, worked with a bunch of councillors. They used the same bullshit lines they're using now, saying that the council is dysfunctional, and then they convinced one councillor back in the day to resign. They actually went around to all the councillors, tried to get anyone to resign, and all the councillors said, no, we're not resigning. And the one councillor who did appears to have been promised an interim mayor's role when the council was brought back from under stewardship of the commissioner. And so sort of 2 years later, after the council had been dissolved in 2019, 2021, the council comes back, or late 20 actually, and there was a one year term, and the councillor who resigned was brought back in as the interim mayor. Now that guy stayed on as mayor now, and as you probably heard, the same guy, Peter Carter, resigned again to kill the council, and he said publicly on ABC, "I had to do it to kill the council and give the town a refresh." This is what he does, and he obviously does it on behalf of his friends in West Perth.
Michael, you're muted.
Yeah, I think I was having echoes, but when I was in Port Hedland, I learned that you guys are one of the most prosperous towns in all of Australia. Isn't that correct?
Look, Port Hedland, and it's sort of a toss-up between Port Hedland and Karratha. On a per capita basis, we are we're certainly, it's always top 1, 2, or 3 in the wealthiest towns in Australia, because it is a very expensive town to live, and everyone up here is working in mining, and so it's a working class town, but everyone is on a very handsome income just from doing their sort of 8 days on, 6 days off, working in the mining space, and so you've either got to be in business or you've got to be working in mining or something, servicing those businesses and mines to be in the town. And so it is a relatively wealthy town. But greater than that, as far as per capita stuff, the town itself flows through the town anywhere, depending on the iron ore price. Right now, it's between 5 and 6% of Australia's GDP flows through Port Hedland, and it's somewhere between 10 and 12% for the West Australian budget. So the town itself is, they call it the economic engine room of Australia, and literally it is. In 2023, the Prime Minister Albanese called a National Cabinet meeting, and he brought the National Cabinet meeting. They do one a year with all the premiers and the Prime Minister. They brought it to Port Hedland basically as an acknowledgement of the importance and geostrategic significance of the town, both economically and I guess strategically in a location standpoint. So, yeah, look, the town really punches above its weight. I mean, I think it's been called the engine room of Australia by 6 prime ministers or the last 7 prime ministers. So everyone knows the value of the town as far as the economic importance it has to the Australian economy. I think it was Port Hedland alone kept Australia out of the GFC in 2008 through 2012. We were shipping out, close to 2 million tonnes a day of iron ore at, bringing in close to, $500 million a day in revenue at that time.
Because you've got, if I was there, they're like 6 ships leave on the incoming tide and 6 come in, don't they? So the ships are constantly changing like that.
Yeah, we're looking at about there's about 200,000 tonnes a ship, and we're looking at about 2 million tonnes a day. So it's about 10. You're right. It's about 5 or 6 ships on every tide. Remember, we have 2 tides a day. So as the tide's coming up, they're sending the full ones out, and as the tide's going out, they're the empties come in, because obviously they sit a lot lower in the water. So yeah, look, the town punches out usually around close to 2 million tonnes of iron ore a day. It's the biggest bulk commodity export port on the planet. As far as weight and volume goes, it's by far the biggest port in the world. So look, it's for the little town that we are of 16,000 people, it's it certainly packs way above its population weight as far as importance and economic importance on the landmass.
And is there anything you can do to stop the council being sacked? Do you have any recourse, any appeal system, anything like that?
Look, we tried. I've put out petitions. A lot of people have been, we've had, thousands of people around Australia sending emails to the Minister of Local Government. You may remember Kim Beazley when he was the opposition leader of the Labor Party in Canberra. So his daughter, Hannah Beazley, is the member or the Minister for Local Government in Western Australia. Her father was he came over here to Western Australia when he left Canberra, and he became the Governor of Western Australia. He was the top man in Western Australia for many years, and his daughter got into politics during that time, and she's now in the Labor Party. She is the Minister for Local Government, and so she has the right as the Minister to allow for one-off meetings, or as long as she wishes, to allow a reduced quorum. So, obviously we need 5 councillors to have quorum, and we normally have 9. It's a 9 council. It's a 9 councillor council in Port Hedland, and unfortunately we had 4 councillors resign since November last year for. There was a couple of political resignations there with the strategy of making exactly what's happened happen. But a couple of people also resigned for personal reasons. One guy had a family health issue, and another had family children issue that she had to leave for. So look, it's certainly she has the ability to allow a reduced quorum so we can hold the budget meeting. It's funny, and I've told this story before, but about 10 days, 2 weeks ago, I get a call from a concerned citizen of the town. And she tells me, because tonight, actually, while I'm talking to you, we're supposed to be sitting in the annual budget meeting to discuss and pass our annual budget. Now, the budget draft was given to us back in July, and the administration of the town gave us the numbers what they thought would work, and the numbers actually had an increase in rates for all residents, and also all small businesses had increases, but the big miners, funnily enough, and the mining camps had significant decreases in rates, and while the rest of us had to cover the shortfall. So myself and the other councillors said, listen, guys, that's not going to cut it. We're not going to allow a rate rise for the residents and for the small businesses, but we still have room to move in the amount we can rate the camps and also the big miners. And so, because this year the Valuer General changed the valuation structure of the mining camps, we had to go back with the new rating strategy to the minister to get ministerial sign-off on the rating strategy that we put in to approve our budget. Now, we've been waiting about 6 or 8 weeks for the minister to sign this document to say, yep, you're good to go. And 10 days ago, the minister signed the document, said, yep, I'm happy with this budget rating strategy, and here it is. You guys can now go and debate the budget. Now, obviously, we were debating the budget. It was all locked in to be tonight, the 27th of August. Now, we have to have the budget settled by the end of August. That's a legislative requirement. We have to. If the budget is not passed by end of August, then they can sack us. Now, obviously, they didn't want the blame for not sending back our rating strategy. So 10 days ago, the minister signed off and said, yep, your rating strategy is perfect. Go ahead. I give the proof. Now, I give the sign off. Now, all of the council, we're excited. We were, all happily waiting to have our first look at the final budget and pass it tonight. Now, out of the blue, 10 days ago, I get a call. For about 2 weeks ago, I get a call from a local resident in the town, really upset, really distressed. She was highly, highly distressed, and she said, I've just been talking to a very senior business leader in the town, and he's been talking with the mayor, and the mayor said he's not going to pass the budget. So it was like, I'm shocked by the news, because we've spoken, the mayor's been through the meetings, we've all discussed the strategy, we're all happy with it, we've all got all the numbers in there that we want, we each got our own little thing. I want to focus on crime, someone else wants to focus on education, someone else wants to focus on the parks and gardens. So everyone's happy with the strategy that we've got in place. But now the mayor is telling people around the town that he's not going to pass this budget. Then, only on Friday night just passed, so 5 nights ago, the minister goes on national television and national radio, ABC, and she says, I'm watching Port Hedland closely. They're completely dysfunctional, and they still haven't passed their budget, and it's coming to the end of the time until they pass the budget, and they are so dysfunctional they can't pass the budget. Now, excuse my French, but that lying piece of work, I'm not going to say what I want to say, but that lying piece of work has lied to ABC and lied to the people of Western Australia, because she literally just finished signing the document. Sorry, Paul, but she just finished signing the document literally earlier that week to say, yes, I'm finally going to sign off on your budget strategy. Here it is. And then she's got the hide to go on television and go, they're dysfunctional. They can't pass the budget. We haven't even looked at the budget until she's signed off on it. So it was clear. As soon as she did that, I called the guys and said, listen, we know the mayor is threatening to not pass this budget. He's either not going to show up or he's going to resign, because there's no way he will debate with us in public in front of the community, because the community comes out on budget night. It's one of the biggest council meetings of the year. He will not debate in front of the town why this budget won't pass. And even if he tried to debate it, we could amend the budget on the night and just foreshadow a motion and say, okay, we will amend it to your liking. But he's not going to do that. He's not intelligent enough. The bloke can barely read or write, to be honest. So we knew he wasn't going to do that. He wouldn't have the balls, and he certainly doesn't have the brains to go out and reject the budget. So it's like he's either going to call in sick and not be at the council meeting, or he's going to resign. Sure enough, he resigns on Monday. The media just only talks to him. They jump all over him, and his excuse why he quit was, oh, we've had 11 meetings and we can't pass the budget. We haven't had a single meeting to discuss the budget, not even one. Of course, we looked at drafts and we've been through all our little briefings that we have, but we haven't had one single meeting to discuss the budget or debate the budget, not one. Tonight was the first night, except he told ABC, he told 6PR in Perth, all the big radio stations, any television that would listen. Of course, they won't talk to us. None of the mainstream media will talk to the council. They just talk to the ex-mayor, who has zero credibility in anything. Everyone knows it. The television knows it. The radio stations all know it, but still they'll only talk to him because obviously they're working on behalf of the state government. They talk to him and he puts out the same narrative that the minister put out only on Friday night to say, oh, we're dysfunctional, we can't pass the budget. I mean, what an absolute load of shit, and what a disgrace that piece of work that sits in a ministerial office has the gall and the tenacity to lie to the faces of straight into the camera and tell the people of Western Australia that we are dysfunctional and we can't pass a budget, when she only 5 days earlier signed off on the document to say this budget strategy is great and here I approve it, you can now go ahead and debate it. And the debate was to happen tonight, except now we don't have a council, so we we don't get a chance. Of course, as I said earlier, I've been pushing people all around Australia, trying to get people to write to the minister, people to call the minister and say, please give Port Hedland a reduced quorum, let them debate the budget, let them pass their budget, and we can discuss whether or not you want to sack us after that. Of course, she's no way she's going to give us a reduced quorum, because if we get together and have a reduced quorum, then she fears that we may move another motion to suspend ourselves until the election. Now the WA elections are only in October, so actually tomorrow nominations open for all WA elections across every WA council. Tomorrow is the opening. There's only 7 days of nominations for WA council elections, and they open tomorrow. So if we pass the budget tonight, she was scared that we may have the ability to put in the wheels in motion, that we go to our election with nominations at tomorrow's opening of the elections all across WA. But the timing is also perfect that she's it just blows my mind what she thinks she's going to get away with here. But her, the mainstream media, of course, will keep their mouth shut, but as far as her credibility, it's finished. She is shot. She has absolutely zero credibility and zero integrity after the bullshit she has said in the last 72 hours.
But looking at the strategy of what she's doing, so you've got the town in Australia that brings in the most money, so that obviously the politicians want to control it. They don't want any councillors really having any power. Two, you've done the extraordinary work with the DNA contamination, and so by sacking you, they're terrifying every other council. You really want to do the contamination thing? Because we'll just sack you. So you can see, I'm only guessing, but you can see two strategies at once. They're looking, I'll look like a liar, but in a week, people will forget. And then we fixed that problem, and we took back the council. I'm just guessing.
You nailed it, Michael. It's not even a guess, mate. I know you're talking from Epic in Canberra, but you absolutely hit the nail on the head. It's absolutely they're sending a very strong message to any council that dares stand up and oppose, the narrative of the West of any government, basically, because any council is only basically an administrative arm of the state government in their particular state. Now, as you remember, the blowback from the Port Hedland Council was quite enormous, and of course the amount of media, for the first time, the TGA wouldn't even respond to Senator Rennick and Malcolm Roberts and all the great senators that were speaking up about the contamination and not just contamination, but the side effects of these jabs. Now when the Port Hedland motion happened, and we were, of course, Roger Cook, the Premier of Western Australia, became the Premier straight from the Health Minister of Western Australia. So he was a health minister all through the COVID, all through the pandemic. And of course, now there's a town, Port Hedland, which is, I explained earlier the significance of the town, not just for the state, but for the nation. And here's a town with, I want to say, a renegade council that has the balls to say to the Premier, we believe these things are contaminated. Please show us some science to prove that they're not contaminated. That's all we ask. Can you please do some testing on these things? Because trust the science, trust the science. The science has now changed. can you please show that the science that we've been presented with is incorrect? Of course they can't, and they won't show that. And so, of course, when the council voted an absolute majority, that was a real slap in the face to Roger Cook. And of course, straight after the council meeting we passed, the council, the Premier attacks Port Hedland Council, but I shoot off to Russia to go to the BRICS conference with John Shipton, Julian Assange's father. Now, of course, he sees me in Russia, and of course, when I get to Russia, as you remember, I was in Russia for the Russian presidential election in March of last year, and that got a lot of, a lot of media and attention. Of course, the Russian media sees the Australian, politician, for want of a better word. I don't consider myself a politician, but the Russian media see me as an Australian politician who was absolutely crucified for speaking positively about the Russian election, which I was the only Australian there to witness. I counted the ballots. And the fact that the Australian media attacked me so hard, when I got back to Russia, the Russian media wanted to talk to me. They wanted to ask me questions about it. But it sort of coincided with the fact that now I was in the media again when I arrived in Russia, only 3 or 4 days after the Port Hedland motion. And in the 2 to 3 weeks after the Port Hedland motion, I think I had something like 200 million views across all social media platforms, while the Premier is talking to Channel 7, getting his 2,000 or 3,000 views. And so he was pissed, and he came after me quite aggressively. He demanded my resignation. He said, I was an embarrassment to the Port Hedland. I was an embarrassment to Western Australia. I was an embarrassment to Australia. I need to resign immediately. And he even went so far as to say in one of his press conferences about me, if you don't resign, we'll look for a way. We'll find the rules that you've broken, and we'll come after you. And so of course, I come back from Russia. I've been over there having a bit of a laugh, really taking the piss out of the Australian, because at that time, remember in October, November last year, there was the mis and disinformation bill happening. So it was quite funny, all this pressure that was coming on the media. And I made the expression in Russia. I said, it's funny that I come here to Russia. I get more freedom of expression in the media than I do. Certainly mainstream media wants to talk to me here. Mainstream media in Australia will just want to cut me down, and absolutely anything I say or do needs to be destroyed, and my character absolutely needs to be destroyed. And so I made the joke about a fascist. I made the fascist comment about, in how they need to make the boogeyman of Russia to try and make the Australian society cohesive. It's kind of like Carl Schmitt's theory, the friend or foe theory, is, if they can create an enemy figure for a society, they can create a cohesive society. And Russia, particularly at that time, was becoming more and more the boogeyman that we all had to hate. And of course,
yes, right.
I'm getting much more attention than obviously the Premier is getting here. And so I said to Roger Cook, after he told me I need to resign, I said, Roger, you might think it's embarrassing what I've done, but what you did to the West Australian people, you were the health minister, you force injected 90% of West Australians with a contaminated gene editing technology. I said, you should be embarrassed, not me. And not only embarrassed, you should be fucking disgusted and ashamed of yourself. And I said, if anyone is going to resign, Roger, it needs to be you. I said, you've injected this stuff not only into adults, but you injected it into children. And I said, if anyone needs to resign, Roger, it's you. So when I came back to Australia, of course, there was a lot of attention around everything that I was doing in Russia, and there was a lot of attention around the COVID stuff, then the Port Hedland motion. And I was sort of half expecting to be arrested when I came back in the country, and it was lucky I had a big sort of group of strangers turned up at the airport to greet me back into Australia. It was really, humbling actually to have this crowd of people I'd never seen before turn up to cheer and clap their hands as I walked through the airport. But as soon as I got back to Perth, there was so much attention around this. I said to a bunch of friends, and I was talking to Russell Broadbent, I was talking to Professor Ian Brighthope over in Victoria, and I said, listen, would you guys be interested in come over to Perth and we'll hold an event around this, because right now there's a fair bit of energy around this. So I put on, you might remember, at the end of November last year, I put on what's called the Great Debate, Port Hedland versus the Premier. Now that really stirred the pot. It was probably a smart-ass move on my part, but I knew full well that the Premier was not going to come and debate us, because he doesn't have the science knowledge, or he doesn't have the knowledge on COVID to challenge us. And so we put on an event. It was quite successful. It had, it had millions of views. It had hundreds of thousands of live viewers. And that at that moment, I knew that, we'd probably sealed our fate, because, we'd had a majority of councils in Port Hedland had supported the motion. And then we had, we'd obviously stood up for a number of things in the past, and having the ex-mayor on the council, and now we've got the deputy mayor who's also strong on a lot of issues. they began to get scared when, holy shit, we've lost control of our most important town on the landmass. And because of mining being rated since 2018, suddenly the town no longer depended on the state government for handouts. And so we can run as an independent town. We do not need state government for anything. We can run on our own 2 feet, and we can, our savings, we sold our airport. We've probably got, $200 million in the bank. And it's one of the few councils that's extremely financial in the Australian landmass. But also, we're a working class town. People up here are tough. People, Michael, when you were here, the average people here just don't put up with bullshit. The bar where you were spending most of your time doing your interviews, the Pier Hotel, it had the big raised section. That's the boxing ring. That's the boxing ring of the town. When people go to the pub, they set the ring up, and they'll be
from there. I got up on
there. That's right. Exactly, that's right.
All these high vis. Only when I got off the stage, they said, "You realise this pub has the record for the most unconnected stabbings in one night." I was like, thanks.
That was back in the 70s, and you can imagine Port Hedland in the 70s. She was a wild town, but obviously now it's very controlled. It's very much under control of the big miners and obviously the state government. But of course, the Labor Party, and it was funny back in March. I was going to run in this. There was so much energy around what I was doing with the Russia stuff and with the COVID stuff. I had a huge platform. I had a lot of people sort of following me, and I don't have social media so much, but I announced that I would run in the state government election back in March. Now, as soon as I announced that, one of the councillors on the Port Hedland Council resigned. One of the Labor Party friends. There's three councillors. There was the mayor and two others that were friends. That were all friends and trying to work against the other majority that we had on council. And so he resigned, and then we only were left with six councillors. So I pulled out of the race in only a week after announcing I would run. I said I can no longer run, because if I happen to get in, and I was probably a pretty good chance because of the profile that I was given in that moment in time. And I said, if I run and I get in, I will leave the council with 5 elected members, and that will give the mayor the ability to resign and kill the council. I cannot in good conscience leave the council with only 5, knowing that the mayor in 2019 resigned to kill the council. The grub will probably try and do it again. As soon as I announced, it was funny, as soon as I announced that I was no longer running and there was going to remain 6 of us on the council, another councillor resigned, the other Labor Party councillor. It was like we had asked her in an earlier council meeting, "Are you going to resign?" And she said, "Absolutely not. I would never resign. How dare you ask me?" A week later, I pulled out of the state government election. She resigned. So the fix was in since back in, we're talking November, but this is all happening in February, March, and she resigned. That left us with 5. So at that point, we knew we've been tiptoeing all the way along. We've tried to hold elections to replace all the councillors who resigned. We had 4 councillors resign over sort of 5 or 6 months. And the mayor, because we need an absolute majority, and absolute majority is 5, we only had 5 on the council. The mayor vetoed it at every point. He said, I cannot allow you guys to hold an election, because he just kept making up lies after lies after lies, every excuse in the world as to why we couldn't have an election to replace. It's just like, we kept saying to him, what is it about democracy that scares you? Which part of democracy scares you, Mayor? Can you please tell the people, because in a debate, you've got a community of the town there watching, plus people watching on the live stream. We just put the pressure on. Come on, Mayor, tell the people of the town why you don't want democracy to run its course. What is it that you're scared of? He goes, oh, no. And of course, he'd never have a debate. He would just look up at the roof and say, I don't support it. And then he wouldn't explain. So look, it was such a, the fix has been in for a while. It's not just me that they're trying to get rid of, although, obviously I rocked the boat quite hard with the COVID stuff, and then of course the Russia stuff. And, of course the media has used those two things quite aggressively against me. But, I think the sort of big majority of West Australians, certainly in Port Hedland, have really seen through that bullshit. And now they saw with the COVID stuff, because no one is getting the boosters and the extra COVID jabs now. So the vaccination rates of any type now are so low, certainly up here, that people are very still silent. There's a still what we call a silent majority, as you know, that don't want this jab and support me for for standing up for the town and standing up for not just the town, but I guess it ultimately became standing up for Australia. And there's 13 or 14 councils around Australia now that have followed suit. Big councils, Bundaberg Council, Port Macquarie, New South Wales. Only this week was Clarence Valley Council, another Yamba, another 50,000 person council. They've followed in our footsteps and voted the exact same motion. So look, it's going to. I think this is going to bring some more attention to it. Hopefully, it doesn't scare councils out of. Hopefully, Australians. There's a little bit of a wave of indignation around this, and people say, "Holy shit, this is what happens when you stand up." So hey, fuck you. And I think some more councils will now stand up on the back of this, just because Aussies, as piss weak as many Aussies showed themselves to be in the last 5 years, there are some things that upset them, and I think being lied to by members of the Labor Party or whoever it is, but it doesn't matter which party, but in particular in Western Australia it's the Labor Party, being lied to so blatantly and just being taken advantage of and having their democracy snatched out of their hands the way we've had here in the last week. I think people will be genuinely pissed off across not just here locally, but certainly around greater Western Australia and hopefully the country.
Yeah, well, we've got the big march on the 31st. It's happening everywhere. It's going to be huge, and there's so many vaccinated people that have been going to me. You're going, I'm going. It's the first time they're going. I'm actually calling this the March of the Vaccinated. Basically, we were the first ones through, and now we've been waiting forever for the reinforcements. 5 fucking years, man. It's like the rats of the book. What's it going to take? And I think this might be something. I know there's talk about white supremacists and all this, but I think people have realised the social contract has been torn to pieces. And what they're taking us somewhere that's not conducive to our souls. It's nowhere that our kids want to live. And we can still remember when Australia used to be a great place. We can remember that. Like Adrian, you can remember when we didn't have computers, with no social media, and there was problems, but there was still. We had an identity. We had a culture. Now we were a people. Now we're just being told what we're going to do. We're going to do this. You're going to do this. Now you're going to have digital ID to get on. You've got no choice, and other things like right the way through to, I reckon if you went around at Port Hedland and did a survey of, say, late-term abortions, you'd probably find 90% said we don't want them, where they leave the baby to die. And yet it's legal around the country. So there's a total disconnect between those who are ruling us and us. And I think it's boiling up. And I think Aussies have had enough.
Look, I really hope they have. And look, I'm glad people are, it's an interesting one. This weekend is, as you said, it started for the wrong reason. People, standing up against, it started on the back of, the massive uprising in support of the nonsense going on in Palestine, and of course a bunch of proud Aussies said, "How dare the Muslims take over our bridge?" And it's sad for me that's where it started, but it's been beautiful to watch the evolution, as you said, that people are starting to ask questions, and they're going to go and they're going to hear speakers that are going to talk not just about immigration, they're going to talk about the COVID jab, they're going to talk about digital identities and free speech being taken. And look, it's quite interesting to see. And if the fact that it's come from the whole Israel Palestine thing, it's great that if that's what it's taken, even though it's woken up a bunch of people probably with I guess it's a more nationalistic type march, which is wonderful. I love the idea that people are going to get out and wave the Aussie flag. I just hope that they're.
We were waiting.
Exactly
for
right.
That's what it is. They walked on the bridge.
It's a start.
And they burned our flag, and that's.
Well, hang on. When you say they, you have to remember who they is, and I think we know who they is burning the flag.
I know, but the thing is, there's people burning our flag. And I think Australians are just going, we're not allowed to, in Victoria, you're not allowed to celebrate Australia Day. You're not allowed to have your flag. And then there was just a video the other day, and this could all be propaganda to make us fire up. And I've no doubt that there could be forces behind it wanting to create bloodshed in the streets, even so they can bring in more powers. But they had a video of a guy flying the Australia flag over a big parade, a big protest, and they arrest him. And people have been contacting me online everywhere. They are so pissed off. And I think they're waiting for that final. It's like in that film, The Meaning of Life or something by Monty Python, where you got that big fat fella. And remember, John Cleese goes, "Do you want a little cracker? Just a little cracker." And then he explodes. That's where I think we're at. I really feel there's so many angry people out there. Sorry, Paul. You're muted, Paul.
Oh yeah, Mr. Creosote. Just a wafer thin tip. Yeah, how close are we to boiling over? People are not even sure what they're pissed off about anymore. But I
that's exactly right. That's my problem with Saturday.
30,000 feet, and I think a country where you can't wave your own flag, you've been invaded. You're not in your own country anymore. There's something really wrong because you're meant to be able to wave your own flag in your own country. Just a general comment. I think Michael's completely right about you've done things which shouldn't be extraordinary and like witnessing an election in a foreign country and going, yeah, it looked all right to me. And then, but I think whatever happens next, you've already set a legacy for your actions and an example. And maybe that's what they, and they can't undo that, and they can't undo your story. But when I hear about politics, politics is a grubby business, so I usually tune out. But it's about money. But it's also about control, and the control of people being able to their bodily autonomy, what medical procedures they should undergo, or the right to say no. That's really fundamental. Otherwise, you're a slave. I don't care what branch of government you're in. You're a slave. So I get the sense that there is a counterattack going on because it's happening in my medical colleagues and elsewhere at the moment in Australia. And you can see it in the UK and, the whole Five Eyes thing and the digital ID, like you said, is coming. So, they're going to attack and, we will win and lose battles. But you said you almost went to put your hand up for election. How long until the people will have another go at that?
In Port Hedland, is you asking?
Yeah, you mentioned about that you drew the election.
It's a great question. So the election's supposed to be in October. The 18th of October is supposed to be our WA general election. The Premier and some of her Labor Party stooges today have come out, not the Premier, the Minister, have come out and said they're trying to juggle between 2 and 4 years where they don't allow an election in Port Hedland. So it's literally this, the absolute obliteration of any semblance of what we thought was democracy. So
yeah,
that's my point.
That in itself, I hope pisses some people off. I think going back to the stuff you were just talking about, I was watching a lot of the comments come up on the screen where people are, seeing the flag being burned and are pissed, and that's a wonderful thing. I think those people who burnt the flag have done themselves the biggest disservice, because those people who don't know should know well that those people burning the flag are the Zionist agitators that get in, they put on a keffiyeh, which is the tea towel looking thing that the Palestinians wear. They go to a Palestinian march, they wait till the crowd's gone, and then they burn an Australian flag, and the media is always there waiting for them to film it, to bastardize the Palestinians. And it gives the Australians, it gets their blood up. And that's a beautiful thing. I love that the Australians' blood up. And so it's quite funny that the Zionists thought, we're going to go along and we're going to wave Australian flag, Israel flags at the march because people are now pissed at the Palestinians. They clearly weren't the Palestinians. I have many family and friends, and everyone who was at the Sydney march, I know thousands, including right up to the Assange family, and it just makes me laugh that people fell for that bullshit. But the funny part was some of the white nationalists from the NSN or whatever they call themselves, the National Socialist Network, have come out and said there will be no Israel flags at this march. And so the media, the mainstream media, have jumped on this big march on the 31st, pushing it, and then suddenly the NSN, the National Socialist Network, in fairness, they say some good things, they say some crazy things too, but they get on and they say there will be no Israel flags, and then suddenly the Zionists come out and go, oh shit, we've gone too far, and now they're not going to allow the Israel flags, because Israel always like to put their flags. You go to an Israel rally and you see there's all the Australian flags and Israel flags, and they make it seem all patriotic, and they use this idea that, you know, Australia is a colonialist country, as is Israel a colonialist country, and they try and join Australia and Israel and make it seem the same. People are too gullible, watching too much television and too much brainwashing. These guys have, you know, they're centuries at controlling people's minds. They're so good at propaganda and information war that we're just in another class. These people are a whole nother level to anything that we can compete with. And so when they go out, when these Zionists go out and burn an Australian flag, when the Australian people wake up to who it is burning the Australian flags, hoping to get a rise out of them, to hate the people they're not supposed to hate, the Palestinians, it's a shit show. It's kind of like when Americans wake up to who did 9/11, we win. When Australians wake up to who's burning our flags, and you know, it's like the caravan terror plot in Sydney. You know, it's like oh, look out there, they're coming for the Israelis, they're coming for, you know, these crazy anti-Semites, and then they find out there are a couple of Israeli spies that do it, trying to get a new hate speech law pushed through the Australian and New South Wales Parliament. It's so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing that we're still falling for that shit. But anyway, it's you know, we're going off topic a little bit. But
no, this is red ants, black ants thing.
I'm not even sure
that thing. Sorry, Paul, you go.
I'm not even sure he's human who's controlling this.
Yeah, maybe. But there's that comment. Have you heard the red ant, black ants thing, Adrian?
Yeah, you told me about this.
Oh, that's me. Well, that's what this is. They're trying to get us to hate each other. And I think a lot of people in Australia are pissed off because we don't want the hate that Israel and Palestine have coming here. Yeah, we have issues. Yeah, but, you know, and like every other country, but we don't have these old ancient hates where I'll kill you or your son just because of, you know, your grandfather killed my grandfather years ago. We don't have those hatred in Australia, but they're trying to bring it here. That's what it looks like. And I think they just want us divided. A cop told me today, I went up to a police officer at the court case with Paul, and I said, look, I want to say how sorry I am for you guys that you've lost two of your own. And I'm not into advocating violence. I know I'm part of this thing, but I'm just not. And he actually said, when he said thanks, he goes, mate, we're all Australians. They're just trying to divide us. This was a young copper. He said they're just trying to divide us. So everyone gets it, you know. So it's yeah.
I wonder. I mean, that's a beautiful story, Mike. I just wonder, you know, he might be too young to have been, you know, firing rubber bullets at you guys in Melbourne in 2021. But yeah, they are trying to divide us, and they've done a great job, and the police themselves have done a great job. So look, I'm like you. I hate to hear of anyone being shot, policemen or anyone, and you know, I just. This whole situation,
shooting in the Shrine, we're not going to heal the country by me hating cops for the rest of my life and getting my kids to hate cops 100%. And then spreading a thing. 100%. All these people hate cops, and here's cops. That's not going to. I don't want to live in a country like that. Okay, yeah, they did these vile things to them, but the power lies with me. Was going, well, listen, I'm forgiving her. I've moved on. In fact, I've built my career of saying I want to have a country where that never happens again. But it's not going to happen again by hating each other. It's just not going to do that. It's reason. It's talking. Yeah. It's finding better ways. Like you say, you're exposing a huge problem in our society where why can't we have politicians who are decent? Why can't we get back to a point where at least semi-decent, a bit corrupt, but semi-decent, not these mongrels we got in charge of us now who treat us like we're serfs? Or, you know, that's it. It's like a feudalistic society. They're the elite, and they do what they want. You know, that's what I think it's coming down to. You know,
the divide and conquer strategy is real.
But we got nothing to do with this march. We didn't organise this march. It's not, and it's not like we're the gatekeepers of marches. Just because we had a load of marches doesn't mean we're the Nazi. We're, we control them. You guys want to march? Great. We're going to come along. I'll tell you what. When they get out their foam spray, just move back a bit. You know what I mean? Get behind the fat guys. They're very handy in that situation. Well, the big
Look, I hope this is I'm not there. I do love that Australians are rising up with a little bit of patriotism this weekend. I think it's a fantastic thing, and I hope it doesn't get ugly, because there has been a lot of hate permeated through the perception of Palestinian supporters burning flags or whatever bullshit it is, and particularly in Sydney, where there's going to be a Palestinian march at the same time as the Australian march. So I'm just hoping that doesn't erupt into something ugly. I've had a few calls from different organisers from across Australia the last couple of days actually, and they're trying to get me involved in the West Australian marches. And I said, look, I'm as proud an Aussie as anyone. As you know, Mike, my company's called GBTK. It's named after Gallipoli, Beersheba, Tobruk, Kokoda. I'm a very, I'm a proud first fleeter. The rates of immigration we're seeing, not just here in Australia but Europe and all over, it's sickening. And I've been to Europe, and I'm close friends with a lot of. Yeah, look, I'm close friends with a lot of.
So sorry to
say
interrupt,
again.
but if I was in India or somewhere, and I was given a chance to come to Australia, I'd take it. It's not the immigrants' problem.
100%.
It's not the immigrants' fault.
Of course not.
They're just been given an opportunity. They're coming. It's our politicians' fault. We're getting this merchandise out here for this bee thing. We're trying to say it's a symbol. So you got this bee. It's an Australian bee.
Where do I get I want a cap. I want a cap with that bee on it.
You want a cap?
It's too hot. It's too hot. It's too hot for a beanie. It's too hot for a beanie in Port Hedland.
And I'll send you a cap.
No, I'll buy one, mate. I won't take freebies.
Oh well, you can send me some money back. You can send me some money back. But the thing is, going back to that police officer, the most beautiful thing he said was, "We're Australian," and he said it in a way as if those two words meant something. He's still holding on to an identity, and that's, I think, what this march is about. People feel our very identity as a culture they're trying to tear it away from us. COVID has decimated it, and they're trying to tear it away from us. And I think this is what the rise up, and that's what's happening in England. They're painting the flag. They're going, no. You get immigrants coming here, but this is still England, and this is still Australia, and it's having us, because we're coming out of the She'll Be Right era where we never talked about this shit. Now we have to actually go, what does that mean now to be an Australian? What's our value system? What do we want to leave to our kids? And why we break?
It's exactly right, but we have to also understand that. Oh, sorry, Paul. What do you got there? You look like you're making a cake there or something.
It's the shit stirring spoon.
Oh, it's a shit stirrer.
He lifts it up.
The shit stirrer. But we have to understand as Australians that I'm so proud of Australians standing up and defending the flag and looking, trying to come back and find their identity. It's such an important thing. But we must understand that the agenda that we're fighting here, in particular the immigration issue, is being controlled not from within Australia. These policies are not coming from Albanese, or, we can blame Albanese all we like, or we can blame, Scott Morrison or whoever's the next bloody Prime Minister of whatever party it is. Nothing is going to change, because these things are being controlled by globalist forces all over. This immigration thing is happening in the US. We saw it under Biden. Even the US president didn't have the ability to stop it. So we're seeing it in the US. We're seeing it all over Europe, the UK. The only country that's really stopping and holding back on it, and I don't want to sound like the usual media bloody trope of Adrian is a Russian stooge, but Russia is very particular on this. They are very, very proud of their culture, very proud of their heritage, and hanging on to it with every bit of political power that they can. And I think it's, you have to go to Russia to spend a bit of time there to go, holy shit, this is what Australia was like in the 1980s. People are so proud and so they hold on to their culture and their heritage, and nothing. It's like something. It's like, this is what I remember as a kid in my. I was only 10 years old in 1985, and I just remember that what it meant to be Aussie. The television ads used to have, it might have been the Seventh-day Adventist ads, and it was all about, if you saw someone trying to back into a car, you'd run over and you'd try and help them back into the street. And everyone was about giving each other a hand. And these were television ads. There was no money to be made out of these ads. It was just, this is the culture that we had, was like, should be made out. Like anything you could do to help a friend or help a neighbor. And it was just, that identity and that culture has been destroyed in the last 20, 25 years in particular. And so it's really refreshing to go to a country like Russia where it's like Australia in the 70s and 80s, and it's just like, wow, this is what we had. They're so proud. They're so proud, and they hang on to that, and you don't dare insult their culture, because it's like part of their. Of course, they've got a 2,000-year-old culture, but it's like we had the same culture.
Yeah.
We were so proud of Australian identity. You never saw another flag waving in Australia back in my day. We used to wear Australian capes running around, and Australia Day was celebrated, and Anzac Day was absolutely, it was like put on some sort of pedestal. And now, like you say, Woolworths and all these, it's so deliberate, it's so clear and blatant and obvious that this whole destruction of cultural identity is happening, not just here in Australia, but all over the world. And it's great that Australians are waking up to it, and hopefully they can understand that this globalist idea to destroy our national identity and our national cultural heritage, like they're doing all over Europe, is a push towards a global government, because there'll be no nation that can rise up against it, because no nation will even know what their own nation state is or was or means.
They wonder what they're fighting for. They've lost
exactly right.
They wonder what they're fighting
exactly
for.
Right.
I interviewed a young girl, and she said to me, I asked her, what do you think of Australian culture? And she said, we don't have a culture. We're just a load of people here doing shit. And that
I remember you said that to me.
I thought that's the thing. And then the other thing, was really beautiful, Adrian, the other day, because what we've lost is men teaching other men how to be men. And so we were on the Monaro Highway from Canberra down to down to Melbourne that way, freezing cold, and someone knocks on our door, and it's a young guy, and he's got a flat tire, and he doesn't have anything to take the nuts off. So I said, yeah, we came out, we got the thing, we fixed it up, and we got the tire on for him. And then he goes to offer me $50. I said, what are you doing? He goes, here, you've helped me. I said, no, mate, this is men's business. I'm not taking your money. You just fucking help someone else when you see them broken down. That's how it works. What I love is, I was somewhere in Melbourne, and I saw this small truck break down, and then 3 or 4 guys, I was one of them, came, and we pushed it off the way, and we don't sit there going, can I have a selfie of me doing a brave thing? Or we just go back to our vehicles and take off without even sharing names. And that's mateship. That's Australians. It's males doing, it's still there, but the propaganda is trying to crush it and make you ashamed. I mean, we're talking to a young guy the other day, and he got really angry. Then he agreed, and he wants to go to the march. He's vaccinated, and he hates the fact that he is. And I said to him, my mate, listen, I said, I sort of am concerned for your generation, because all you're being offered by Australia as these young white males is shame to be Australian, shame that you're a heterosexual male, wrap that up in silence and take it to the grave as though you were never here. Instead, even like that snake we had under the bus, I had a 2-meter snake decided to make a home on my gas tank, so I couldn't get the fucker out. And I was sitting there thinking, what the hell am I going to do? And this young tradie stopped. I can't even remember his name. And he's going to do a job. And I said, mate, you any good with snakes? And he spent 40 minutes with a stick prodding this 2-meter python until I could get hold of it and pull it out. He didn't want any accolades. He didn't want an interview. He didn't want anything. He just said, no, see ya. And he was covered in shit from under my bus. He didn't care. And I thought, we should be celebrating our young men. These are the stories we should see, so other young men want to emulate it. Instead of shaming them like they're toxic or something. They're not toxic. He's just a good bloke. And this is where we've got to think long term now of actually emboldening our young people, emboldening ourselves. You, Adrian, I mean, you've got the height. You're a natural leader, man. You're like one of our Bravehearts. You really are. You've got that. People look up to you. And I remember the story you told me, and I tell it all the time, that you went to one of your school gatherings. You thought, oh, I don't want to go. They all think I'm a lunatic. And instead, after a few amber ales, they're all around you going, what's in this stuff? And you were the rock in that situation. It's a burden, man. It's a burden in this time, but we need to do it. We need to forget about happiness and this. The joy of being alive now is the purpose of actually fighting for what is right, and what is right to defend our culture, and because we're worth fighting for. We're worth fighting for. This is a beautiful country, and we're a beautiful people. We've just, and blaming Albanese is like blaming Punch and Judy, to be honest. It's basically, we have to fuck off the she'll be right era, which is dying around us, and redefine who we are. Our identity is up for grabs at the moment. We have to define it. And if we don't, the woke will define it for us. And Paul here could decide to be a woman, and we'll have to go, yeah, Paulina, no worries, you know? And this is, I'm sorry, but this is what we're facing. It's actually, we're joking, but they're trying to shove a new reality over us. And I think we've got a right to defend who we are. Sorry.
You could argue it's a unified attack, you know, the DNA contamination, the fertility drop-off, which we've been talking about at the Lighthouse Declaration.org roundtable too. I mean, it's 1/3 less successful conceptions in the Czech data, you know, large databases, record level data. I mean, that's species threatening, you know. So while we're arguing over ideologies and which God you want to pray to, or what flags you want to think, you could argue that it's all linked and that we're under attack, and that the indigenous people of whatever type are being phased out, and they're bringing in an invasion force, or at least. But I don't know how much it applies in Australia. But you know, people can't afford houses anymore. We're going to face the fact that our money is toast. All fiat currency is toast, and Australia's just ahead of the game, which is why our real incomes are created against the OECD. They're ready to march against peanuts at this stage. I mean, it's just a tinder, and this is my problem, right? This time is going to come. People don't know exactly why. They should really be going to the Reserve Bank of Australia. You know, that's the cartel that is. The banking cartel really are the real, and they're multinational. You know, but so this is my concern. If we don't go with love, we will not achieve any peace or resolution.
Can I add to that?
The moment we limit our love, Michael, my concern is the moment we limit our love to any humans, vax to unvax, it doesn't matter, any dimension. This is where we're going down the wrong path. And see, I don't understand what the march is about. I do in general terms, perhaps, that we think the immigration numbers are way too high, and I'm sure they are. You know, it's in line with what's considered an invasion in the UK and in the US, just different mix. And who's presiding over it, and what sort of sanity that makes, especially in an AI so-called world where they're saying they won't need 70% of the workers, you know, in 50 years or less. So none of it makes sense, but you can accept that you can unify it as a war. Whether it's the DNA contamination and the cancers, you know, you can taper a Ponzi, as Dr. Cruz says, by shortening the lifespan. And, you know, they've got a huge liability because they've been giving out more free shit than they have because they can print the stuff. You know, look at the Aussie dollar against gold. It just looks like a parabola. So this game is over soon. People are just pissed off. I don't care what it is, but they're ready to blow. And I'm just wondering,
guys.
Yes. Well, that's why I've been muted most of the time. I'll shut up again soon. I'm just saying.
I don't think it's you.
Without love, you know, for the Russians, the Israelis, the Palestinians, the Palestinian kids, all of them, you know, we have to have true universal human rights. And I think if this is what I would march for, with love to all humans, and perhaps soon non-humans. I don't know what shit's coming, but the social contract, I think you mentioned earlier, Michael, is toast. You know, and when the money dies, it's toast. And it's gonna get a bit crazy. And this is why I don't understand exactly why people are marching. I know they want to go back to an earlier time. I think we should principle values. I would march for values. You know, the values that we've talked about: bodily autonomy, informed consent, freedom. You know, if I can't, they've conducted egregious crimes. You know, I would march against that. I just don't understand, you know, yet. And the motivation has to be one of love for me to be more comfortable. And I can just see there's anger in the vision, and it's just you might as well stay home. If you can't come with love for the country, and then, you know, we have a tradition, and we should not, like Michael's saying, we should celebrate masculinity and who we are, and in defense of our women and children, I think is probably, you know, and
you
that's
want to know the definition of irony, Paul? That everyone will be going to this march against mass immigration, and probably 30% of them will take an Uber there, and when they get home, they'll get Uber Eats. And it won't be an Aussie delivering it. Yeah, look, Adrian, you're busy, man, so if you have to go, I've had a big day, but I want to tell you something of hope. I don't know why I got an echo. I'm sorry. You just have to put up with it. You got this young guy, Paul, who drove the big truck at Epic. The big black truck, got arrested. 3 years he's been in limbo, and they've still got the truck. They're charging him with driving at police as though he was going to recklessly endanger their lives. So he's facing serious charges. He's got a jury trial. We raised about 60 grand or helped him, you know, with the podcasters. The boys raised about 60 grand, and that's all gone. Lawyers took it and said, you need more for a barrister. They couldn't get one, so that's gone. So he's in there with a family friend helping him. And he's got an acquired head injury and dyslexia from that. So he's really struggling, but he never complains. We sit there watching him trying to defend his freedom. This is the fight for his life. And he never complains. And he went to me, and he's polite to everyone in the court. And he comes across as, you think, oh, he's weak, but he's not. He's really strong, because he says, I have a huge belief in his religion. He's a Christian. And his core belief is do unto others as you have them do unto you. So he refuses to have the hate in him. And I'm saying there's a good chance you could lose this. And he's going, and because I said, why didn't you just do a runner overseas or something? And he said, well, I don't think I've done anything wrong, and it's in God's hands. So if I'm meant to go to jail, I guess that's what I'm meant to do. So he's going to defend his faith, and so it's a love of his faith and himself. So he's an incredibly brave human being. And the beautiful story is his brother, and this really upsets me. His brother is with him by his side all the time. His brother works in the camera store. You know, he's not, they don't have much money either, but he's next to him all the time. And he doesn't have the skills either. It's just the two of them up against this entire enormous judicial system. And they've even got the judge who put McBride in jail, and he's been decent to them, but I'm just in awe of these two brothers sticking together, fighting it up, upbeat, keeping their smiles up, coming out, going, "Oh well, that went wrong." I admire heroes. The reason I go around the country is not because I like talking to idiots. I just like celebrating the heroes that have stood up in this period. And someone like you, Adrian, others, people haven't heard of them. There's Monica in York, in the town of York, who's healed her town and got the mandate stopped in the town of Victoria by herself almost. There's unsung heroes all around Australia. And these people are strong enough and resilient enough, and this includes you, Adrian. They're strong enough, they're resilient enough, and they're driven enough to become the foundation for a better country. But it's a way off. It's slow, it's going, and it's doing it. And this shit, like you getting the council sacked, that's just another road bump. Fuck it off and keep going. They can't stop you, brother. You're too big anyway. They need an elephant gun or something.
Look, I appreciate the compliment. I don't think I'm any kind of hero or probably deserving of those kind words, but
I mean, anyone in the movement who will take that accolade. Anyone, maybe Topher, but no one else will take that accolade.
But I want to say this to you and to your audience. I don't know how many people watching and maybe watch later, but this weekend is a big it's a great thing. I think the march over Sydney Bridge and everything else was also a great thing. People are coming together. They're waking up. They're being woken up to things that they wouldn't have ever woken up for. And again, it's probably because of the horrific crimes they're seeing in Gaza, and that brings one big crowd out, and that brings another big crowd out, and we've got to unite those crowds. But we're going to see a crisis, right? We're going to see another crisis. I don't know what it is. Is it going to be a digital bloody cyber attack? Is it going to be a banking collapse? Is it going to be a stock market crash? Is it going to be World War III? Is it going to be another virus? I don't know what it is, right? But I am.
Don't forget the aliens. Aliens.
Yeah, well, look, it could be.
I'm so pissed
off. It could be the aliens.
I'm so pissed off. I didn't. In Australia, you can't even look up. I didn't draw the aliens on my bingo card, but I forgot about aliens. That could be what it is. But we're going to see a crisis in this Trump era. And one thing you guys in the eastern side and certainly in the western side, we're preparing, but we're going to have a mass uprising of people. Never mind the 31st. Hopefully it's big crowds around Australia. It's wonderful if it is, but they don't know what they're marching for, as Paul alluded to. Some people are going for immigration. Other people are going for, white nationalism. Other people are going for this, and there's going to be people there for, waving anti-COVID flags, and other people are going to be there waving bloody, anti-bloody Palestine or anti-Israel or whatever it is. There's going to be such a eclectic mix. Now, this is good that people are starting to get back in the groove of rising up. But when people are really going to rise up is that very brief moment like we had in November when the mandates kicked in November 21 through to the culmination of Canberra, February 22. There was a 4-month period, maybe a 3-month period. Every city, Perth, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, every city was getting hundreds of thousands of people rising up. And our mistake at that time, and it's not even a mistake, we had to learn, we were kind of finding our feet. We were a little bit... we're a little bit lost. We didn't know who's who in the zoo. We were like, we've got Ricardo Bosi, he's our hero, or maybe it's going to be Hoodie over here, or it's going to be Michael Gray Griffith, or we all kind of looking for a hero, right? And what we learned in hindsight from those moments is we didn't have a plan. We kind of got to that point and we didn't say, guys, this is what we're doing. And I suggest strongly to you guys in each of your states. Michael, I know you're on the road a lot. Paul, I'm not sure. Where are you, Paul? You in Sydney? Yeah. So each of the you kind of need to be working with the leaders in who we've worked out. We had to sort the wheat from the chaff in the last 5 years. There's been some people that have come and gone that were we thought were going to be great and ended up being letting us down. But we need to be prepared for the next crisis, and there is going to be a crisis, and I believe there'll be a crisis in this Trump term. And if we don't have direction, when we get those crowds
if we don't have direction and a plan for those people in that moment, we're going to lose. It's not like, we talk, maybe in 10 years or 20 years, we're going to get this back. This doesn't come back. If they can jam that digital identity on us and a central bank digital currency to go with your digital ID, there's no fighting. It's all over. Yeah. So we've got a very, as Obama's chief of staff, Rahm Emanuel, used to say, you never let a crisis go to waste. Now, we let an amazing crisis go to waste in COVID, but we didn't let it go to waste. We learned a lot of lessons, but what we did learn is that we got a lot of people rose up. Every city, every major city and town in the country rose up. And people rose up until the point where they got to their breaking point. They needed their job. They needed to take that jab, whatever. They took it. Everyone went back to sleep. And you go to a rally now and there's 500 people. I'm glad to see, hundreds of thousands crossing the Sydney Harbour Bridge for a cause. And it was a great cause. I'm hoping to see the same number of people, Aussies, marching against immigration and God knows whatever else they're going to march for on this Sunday. That's a wonderful thing. But if we are not smart enough to be prepared with a plan for the next crisis, it may be our last throw of the dice. And I really want to hammer that home, that yourself, Michael, you've been a leader in all this, even though you put other people, you put me on a pedestal, but you yourself should be on that pedestal, because people look up to you. They go to you for guidance. They know, Michael Gray Griffith knows everyone. You've been such a stalwart through all of this. It's people like yourself and you, Paul, in Sydney, and God knows where Michael be. He's always on the road. But those leaders in those towns, they need to be meeting and making a plan. And if they don't have a plan,
they don't have a brain group, like a group that gets together, like a council, even, or and talk, because there's so many different groups, and some people think radical things. I'm not a radical. I just didn't want a government telling me what to put in my body. That's where I started from. Fuck off. And but to me, this is,
and when you all bring home. Freedom of movement. When they lock down freedom of movement with QR codes, and you 5 kilometers from your home or stay inside. That's that. When we were basically in prison, when we couldn't go for a swim, on a sunny day, or walk on the beach because of bullshit, which was basically a form of medical martial law based on bullshit, and people knew they were playing us. So they've already imprisoned us for 2 years. Now, maybe we don't know how much people are waking up to. We're probably ahead of a lot. There'll be people climbing that ladder now, piss off with this. and that's the problem.
Over here, I'm really interested in growing the movement, capturing its history. Epic is part of our folklore. That's why Paul's really important. We left him there. The big black truck. We have to support this young fella. He's one of our sons. But then there's other things, like we've been pushing. Why don't we'll set up a range of op shops, like even Blue Bee op shops, and we're telling people, entrepreneurs in our movement down the West Coast or the East Coast, saying, people are really over the other op shops, and they actually suddenly, we've got commerce behind us. You're not going to win a revolution just with passion and integrity and honor. You need funds. Every group that's succeeded eventually finds a way to fund itself. So it's getting businesses there, our people can work. A perfect one is was it the 4-wheel drive company Britza? Was it Britza? I can never remember the name. Drifter. This gentleman put himself in a lot of financial trouble, Luke, employing the people that lost their jobs. He had camping stores where you had paramedics working, firemen working, other people that lost their jobs. An absolute hero. And these heroic stories have to be captured, because you build a culture on stories. And so Luke's a story. This is a story. I know it's slow going. I know it's not like a golden bullet, but eventually it'll grow. And if we solidify our foundation of this is who we are, then we can grow on that. And if the money comes in, people hate the Zionists, and they a lot of thing about the Jews, but look at the difference between some minorities and the Jewish. The Jewish own the banks. They they do commerce amongst each other. We had a mechanic who fixed the bus because I filled it full of petrol. He was unjabbed. He didn't know anything about me. He just looked at the bus, got up at 4 a.m. to fix the bus, and I've been promoting him now. He didn't want any money, and he just loved what I was doing. And I said, anyone in this whole area in our movement should go to him. And so suddenly there's commerce going amongst us. This is what communities do. The Amish do it. This is what it's doing. And this is about having us an ability to identify ourselves in a crowd. What I said at that gathering the last time I saw you, Adrian, we need some fashion. We need some way to identify each other, because if it grows with a symbol, that's powerful. And the government can't. They can shut down a council, but they can't shut down a symbol that some kid can draw or a sticker anywhere. It's building the story of who we are, that other people want to look at us. At the moment, the story is some of us are sovereign citizens and shoot cops, others a bit crazy like this. But that's not actually the fact. The actual fact is that there is a core of Australians, about 10% maybe, and these are the ones who really stood up against a $1 trillion propaganda machine who wanted to eradicate their culture. And they stood up against it. They drove to ABC has just said that Epic was the biggest protest in Australian history in Canberra. These are things that we have to solidify in our literature, in our anything that goes, this is who we are. Because once you know who you are, then you can fight to defend it. At the moment, we're all spread out. Anyway, I could be wrong. This is just thought. Anyway, I just came on to have a laugh with you.
No, look, it's great to see you, mate, and always love chatting. I wish we got a bit more time chatting on the Gold Coast the other week, but certainly it's great to see you, and certainly thank you for bringing our little shit show in Port Hedland to the to the conversation in your circles.
We're a little tribe. We're a Café Locked Out tribe. Club Grubbery is another tribe. Topher's got a tribe. You've got a tribe. We've broken into little tribes, but that doesn't mean we're not together. We just people finding what floats their boat. Anyway, I'm going to let you go, brother. I've been
absolute pleasure to see you. Good to see you too, Paul. I can't wait to catch up when I'm in Sydney next, mate. I'm not sure when I'm over that side next, but certainly I'll call in and catch up with you. I'd love to have a beer one of these days. And Mike, thank you for the time. Thank you for your support on the Port Hedland shit show. And certainly I'll be in touch, mate, if there's anything we can kind of collaborate on and maybe
I'll send you a hat. But have a listen to this. I approached you with culture. This song is my words, but AI. But so many people are sending me songs. This now has been played on radios around Australia. Not the MSN, but this is how we start slowly getting back culture. This is called The Lucky Country. Anyway, stick around for 3 minutes to listen to it. And thanks for coming on. It's an honor to have you on. Seriously.
Look, my pleasure, mate. No, thank you. It's my honor to be here.
It's called The Lucky Country.
When I met Jesus Christ, he was almost 10 years old. And he was helping his mother push a trolley full of all they owned. And because they couldn't find an inn they could get in, they were heading to the city and leaving Bethlehem. Couldn't you perform a miracle? I'm out of them, he said. I tried turning nothing into warmth, but it just made my mother cry. It just made my mother cry. Mary Magdalene has become a man, and tonight he's old, and she has been riding my tram. Now it's late and she's trying poster for a bank. Your dreams are important to us as it bathes her face in gold. Come give us your natural gifts. We make wealth from toil. Come pretend for history's page that we're advancing Australia fair. Let's pretend that we're all advancing Australia fair. Back down the road I found the church we built on the black man's bones was empty, and out the front a sign read all but sold. A sign read all but sold. And we all owe so much money, but to whom we're not quite sure. So head down, we just keep running along our fading golden shores. So head down, we just keep running